Hey, what's up, guys? MugenLord here, and today I want to talk about Anata, which was formerly called Project Mugen. Now it has an official name, and the reason why I want to talk about this is because it made me just start thinking about my relationship with Gacha Games, and I really wanted to share that with you guys and have a discussion about it when it comes to this particular genre of games. Now, before we dive into this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. This is pretty interesting because when it comes to Gacha Games, I can see the appeal to these games, and the fact is that they have become so popular, especially here in the West, is now we're starting to see a shit ton of releases of different kinds of gacha games, and since there's so many of them, now it's hard to keep up with them. And just like any other live service game or free to play game, man, these require a lot of your time and dedication, your devotion to these particular type of games, which is something that I don't really have time, especially me being a comic book, writer, and now I have a comic book company that's releasing my first comic book series and everything, and also just me being a YouTuber and a streamer on top of that, and a 3D hentai animator as well. So I have a lot of things to juggle, so trying to find time to actually play a gacha game, spend my time and investment, it's just I don't have that time. But when you look at it and you see the massive appeal, which you have to admit that there is an appeal to it, because the thing when it comes to gacha games to make you want to actually spend time and investment in them is the fact is that gacha games have something similar to one another, and that's its characters. It's the characters and aesthetics and the designs of these characters make you fall in love with these characters. They range from badass to downright just sexy when it comes to the fan service and everything. So when you see these characters, you see a character that may resonate with you and say, hey, I got to roll for this character. I have to get this character. I need this character in my life. And then also the world itself and the story that's crafted around this wonderful world, especially with the aesthetics and everything, and the character interaction when it comes to the characters that you trying to roll for, and you see how these characters interacts with one another. That's why you see a ton of fan art. You see a ton of fan fiction when it comes to these characters, because they make these characters so relatable and you resonate with these characters. So I understand that appeal. So the question is, how come MugenLord doesn't spend any time and investment with games like Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero? Because if you know my taste and what I like in character designs and world building and storytelling, this will be something up my alley. But when it comes to gacha games, man, it not just only that is the time and investment, it's just the business model behind it. When it comes to these live service games, these free to play games, I don't have any ownership over these games whatsoever because of the business model behind it. I always wanted to play a game that's like Anata, where it does take some inspiration from some Western developed games like Rockstar with Grand Theft Auto. That's what pretty much Anata is. It's a anime type of Grand Theft Auto with Grand Theft Auto mechanics, a big explorable sandbox for you to dive into, and then on top of that, now you add that urban setting and these cool ass character designs from both the male and female characters that make you want to actually get into this particular type of game. But the fact is that we finally had something like this that's more on the eastern side of things. It's free to play. It's a gacha game, which means I have no ownership of it. I can't go to the store and pick it up and buy it and then come home, install it, play the game, and when I'm done with it, put it back in the box and then hang it and put it on the shelf with the rest of my gaming collection. So that's another thing that really pretty much stopped me or make me procrastinate on wanting to invest in it. I mean, we already recently talked about live service games like multiverses, like people spend hundreds of dollars into these games, into the game, and then all of a sudden Warner Brothers Studios decide to shut it down. I mean, that's hundreds of dollars just down the drain, and it's all that player time that you put into that game is all gone. Now I know people can argue and say that, hey, Hoyoverse is much different and these other studios are much different from the East, where these games last for years upon years and upon years, and you don't see games like Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail or Zenless Zone Zero or Withering Waves. You don't see that these games will fade from existence anytime soon, and I understand that point as well. I think the thing that really got me the most was when, like I said, I'm a casual when it comes to these games. I was invited into the closed beta of Zenless Zone Zero. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed what I've played of the game. But I remember when I first started playing, I noticed this thing called a charge. It had batteries. I'm saying, why I'm getting battery power? Like, what's going on with this? I don't understand how this mechanic work. I don't know what it is. I don't really play gacha games, and I noticed that every action that I take in the game, my battery charge would go down. So I started asking you guys who are familiar with this. I asked, what does that mean? And you guys pretty much essentially told me once it reached down low below a certain threshold, that also limits your access to what you can do in the game, unless you invest money into it to get new charges, or you would have to log out of the game and wait a few hours so your charge can increase. So now you're saying to me that I have a limited amount of play time with the game, and depending on what actions or what features that I take advantage of affects my playtime. So in order for me to stay in this world any longer, I would have to either like grind really hard, or log out of the game for my charge to increase, or spend some money in order to get more batteries and stuff. So I was like, what? Like, so it doesn't feel like a game to me at this point, And I think that's the thing that makes me drag my feet when it comes to these gacha games. And what's so crazy about it is, if you were to tell me about like 15, maybe 20 years ago, that mobile games, because that's where most of these gacha games extended from, mobile games. If you was to tell me about 15, 20 years ago that mobile games would become like almost like the standard as far as like the business model is concerned, I would laugh at you. Looking at mobile games, you just laugh at it when you compare it to console games and also PC games, all together. I would laugh at you and say, no, this is a joke. I always see mobile games as a joke, but here we are. Mobile games has definitely evolved, and now they're becoming very competitive to PC gaming and also console gaming altogether. And in fact, I think the gaming industry, and the way it is when it comes to live service games and their monetization practice, I believe that mobile gaming and these gacha games are partly to blame for why the industry is the way it is, because these developers have seen the mobile gaming market and seen the billions and billions of dollars that they have ranked in, especially when you look at games like Genshin Impact or just the Huyoverse in general, and how much money that they have synced in over time. And now they look at this and they say, hey, the console market is saying like, or the industry itself is saying that, okay, they ranked in billions by doing this. How can we implement this type of monetization practices in our games? And now we have the birth of the live service. We have the birth of the free-to-play on consoles and also on PC as well, where you have to sink tons and tons of hours to grind out currency, or to grind to get particular equipment and also characters and everything. And now we're starting to see cut features from our games just so they can be able to resell it to you, or put it in the market, so you have to grind for it or spend real money to get these items and these assets and stuff, which is really a bummer. And then, as I said before, when it comes to gacha games, I understand the appeal, and when it comes to Nada, man, it ticks all the right spots, where you have cool, badass, character designs, and then you start to see some Western influence in terms of gameplay, where you see GTA type of gameplay, and then also you see some Spider-Man type of mechanics as well, and you have this huge sandbox where I would love to get lost in. But looking at it, despite how the appeal is it something that I would actually sit down and want to actually play? And that's something I've been trying to I've been struggling with in with myself, of whether or not I want to play it. And I said this before, I've installed Zenless Zone Zero on my PS5, and in fact I even made a post about it on X, and I have yet to actually play it, especially after I booted up Zenless Zone Zero, and it just so happened that the game was going through a maintenance for a couple hours, and then once I turned my PS5 off, I never went back to it. The same thing with Genshin Impact and everything. And despite the appeal that it has, the fact is that in my mental, the fact is that I don't have ownership over these games. It just make me drag my feet, and I really want to play these games, man. I've been seeing, especially in Zone Zero, man, I love the urban aesthetic. I love the character designs. Oh my god, man. especially me owning a comic book company. I'm creating my own worlds, I'm creating my own characters, and character designs is something that's really essential to me. And looking at the character designs in Zenless Zone Zero, it just screams out to me like, man, this is so awesome. I gotta play this game, but man, I just haven't built the strength to actually want to go and play these games. Now, even though I say that I'm not too familiar with gacha games, and I've always wondered, what does gacha mean? I always used to hear it a long time ago, but never knew what it meant. And I never knew the understanding what gacha is. And then I turned around and just thought about it for a second, that gacha games isn't really new to me. I've actually experienced a gacha game years ago. I mean, years ago, before they became popular and mainstream here in the West. And what I'm talking about here, what do you mean that MugenLord? What do you mean you played a gacha game years? I mean, years ago. I mean, during the GameCube and PS2 and the original Xbox era. So what am I talking about here? Well, there's a game made by Capcom that was developed by Capcom. And the name of the game was called Gacha Force. And I still own it. I got it packed away, stored away in the basement. But one day I'm going to do an actual review on the game, because it was a pretty interesting game back then. And the title says gacha. It's called Gacha Force. So then when I heard when I hear the word gacha, that is a gacha game, I said, wait a minute. I heard of gacha before, but now that I think about it, Gacha Force. Now, Gacha Force, it was pretty much an arena fighter, or an arena-based game that's similar to Virtual On. If you ever played Virtual On, that was made by Sega. Well, they actually took Virtual On. What Capcom did, they took Virtual On, and what they did was they put a gacha twist to it. Now you have these middle school kids who stumbled upon these things called gacha borgs. They're from another planet. And think of Transformers as well. They're actually action figures, and they landed on planet Earth, and these kids find these action figures, and now they're trying to fight against this intergalactic force using the Gacha Force. So the main character has G-Red, who's like the main protagonist in this. And how the games work is you go through these specific arena and fight against other characters, Gacha Borgs, and you fight against the intergalactic force that's trying to take over Earth. Now the thing is, as you fight in these arenas, which is pretty cool, you fight in like classrooms, you fight in schoolyards and things like that, which gives you like this big scope of how the world actually is. So what happens is, as you defeat these robots and everything, at the end of every match, you can actually roll to try to get these different type of gacha borgs, which I thought was pretty cool and everything. So it pretty much had like a gacha mechanic to it. Now, depending on how rare some of the gacha borgs are, you would have to roll so many different times to get different pieces of the gacha borg itself until it makes a full gacha borg that you can add part of your arsenal. Now you can build a team of gacha borgs, and each gacha borg are worth certain amount of gacha points. So you can set certain matches. Say for instance you have 1,000 points. That means you can only put a certain amount of gacha borgs that total up to 1,000 points. And then the game also had multiplayer with 4 other players. So what you can do is, my friends and even my brothers had bought a copy of it, and my friends had bought a copy of the game. So you can pretty much put your gacha borgs on your memory card on the Nintendo GameCube, because it's a Nintendo GameCube exclusive. And you can bring your gacha units in your team and put them on your memory card, and you can battle against your friends, or even team up and do 2v2, which I thought was pretty awesome. So I was addicted to that game. And like I said, it was a game that I owned. I bought the game, I owned the game, and I can play the game anytime I want. But it was so addictive because the gacha borgs themselves I thought was pretty cool. So there was gacha borgs that I've encountered and say, yo, I wonder if I can actually get that gacha that gacha borg. And I would fight time and time again to try to unlock and roll for those borgs. And it was just a cool feeling to have when you finally get that gacha borg that you was aiming to roll for. So that's why I say, okay, this is what they mean by gacha games and gacha mechanics. It's because of those, like I said, that enticing feel and that you would get when you get the characters that you want. And now I understand, and after reflecting on it, when it comes to Gacha Force. But when it comes to Nada, this may be the game. I'm not sure that I may want to actually try. Of course, I'm still trying Zenless Zone Zero when I get a chance. but everything about this game looks pretty interesting. Whether or not that the game actually has substance to it, that's will be remain to be seen until people actually get their hands on it, and hopefully I can be able to get my hands like in an early build or have early access to the game and actually try it. I definitely want to see what it's all about and everything, but that's pretty much my reasons why I can't really get into gacha games. But looking at Inada, it's just one of those other games that really wants me to get into them. But the other thing, or the other problem that I'm having, is you start to see a lot of similarity across the board when it comes to them. Like when I look at these gacha games like Withering Waves, I can look at it and say, yo, this is a gacha game, but at the same time I'm kind of confused. I'm like, is this Genshin Impact? Or when I look at Zenless Zone Zero and now we got Inada, they all look similar to each other. So I'm starting to worry about that. Will there be like an oversaturation to a particular type of theme and genre when it comes to these gacha games? But I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the conversation below. What do you think about Inada in its gameplay? Do you think this is going to be a game that's going to stand alone or separate itself from the rest of the gacha games? Or do you think this is going to be another cash grab type of gacha game that may not, you know, have any substance to it, or may not even last long at all, even after once the game released? I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And what advice can you give me when it comes to, you know, trying to invest my time in these gacha games? I still have yet to play Nikkei, the Goddess of Victory. A lot of you guys have been telling me to get into that as well. So there's a lot of gacha games to get into, and when I do decide to actually get into Zenless Zone Zero, I will definitely cover some content, so I'll give you like a progress report on how I feel about these games overall and my time and investment in them. So if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.